April. What are we doing today? Come on.
E85?
Huh?
Don't be bossing me around.
Give me your parts. Give me your parts. I don't need your hose.
Where are they at?
Right here.
Where they are.
For cam only G8, we should be able to get away with bigger injectors and an E85 kit from G8only.com. These are CTSV injectors. Ah, look who just showed up.
Hey, didn't
It's
see
Dusty.
you guys here.
Welcome to the shop.
Hey.
Dusty, there is a difference between the SS one and the G8 ones I found.
There he is. And Joe LaBruza at G8 Only, LSX Only, or SSonly.com hooked us up with this kit. The difference in the kits is basically just the O2 sensor wiring harnesses, as the SS has the trapezoid style plugs, and these are square. So Joe does a good job with these kits in that the wiring is all behind the engine. It doesn't have to come forward and hook into the EGR setup like some do. So we really like these kits.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
Thanks,
and
Joe.
We got CTSV injectors for this one, and they should be enough for the cam only. Now, if you get into boost or something of that nature, these would probably not be enough because these are only 56 pounds.
Here's the SS kit from G8only.com or SSonly.com in this case. So you can see the difference is just the harness here,
Oh yeah, it is.
as they use the different O2 sensor connections.
10, 4.
Yes. So first thing we're going to do is knock the injectors out. So we're going to relieve the fuel rail pressure. We'll use this fuel pressure gauge set up. Screw the adapter on.
Even if the car's been sitting a while, sometimes it'll still have some pressure on there and it just causes problems. It's easier to just do it.
Visual. Unwind this guy and then just dump whatever's in there, which it looks like it was fairly empty to begin with. That way you don't squirt it all over yourself. It's not like gas for 3 days. Next thing we'll do is unhook the factory fuel line using a 3/8 inch quick disconnect tool. Push in on the line, push back on the tool, wiggle it back and forth a few times, comes right off.
It did come right off.
Take it up out of the way. Sometimes they don't work quite as good, and that's that. So now we're going to go through and unhook the electrical connectors to these injectors. They can be a little tricky sometimes.
You know how to do them?
Really?
Yep.
Oh, you do.
Boom. So the locking tab is going to slide up, and then you're going to push in on the release tab.
I like filming her.
Just
Oh,
like
there she
that.
goes. Okay.
Just like that.
I was doing it fine.
I know, that's exactly what I said.
And we
the
got
pressure.
4 volts here. Get back in the back.
This will be like my camera.
Well, no, it should be. I mean, with the kit, it really is as simple as swapping injectors and pinning one pin. That'll take them the longest to pin your computer.
And there's your fuel rail. With
Yep.
injectors, you want to keep your hand over that fuel line and put there.
Good idea. There's still gas in there.
So you just want to push them off like that. You want to kind of round in a circle while you're pulling back. Pop these guys out. And then you can dump a lot more fuel out of the rail.
Jeez.
So we'll go back with the new injectors, larger injectors. I like to put a little petroleum jelly on the O-rings when we put them in. It just makes them go in a little easier, keeps the O-ring from rolling on you. Chris, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the advantages of E85 and why you would want
Well, in the tune, there's a couple advantages. It's actually a higher octane, so it's about 100, I think, 6 or 7 octane, and so it's going to give you that benefit of being able to run more timing, and it's you're going to use more of the fuel, which that cools the charge slightly as well. So being able to run more timing and having a denser charge is going to help with power. Usually picks up around 3% on the dyno, so not huge, but
Especially on an NA application, right?
yeah, on all motor cars it's not huge, but if you're making 450 at the wheels, it's not uncommon to see another 12, 13 horsepower, maybe more depending on the situation if you know real extreme. But if you get into boost setups or nitrous setups, the advantages multiply for sure.
Every little bit helps.
Yep, and you see in that short time of talking 30 seconds, it's already got every injector in, gonna put the metal locks in there, and
The locks have to go in the groove on the injector. It's easier said than done sometimes, like that, and then they lock on the groove in the fuel rail.
yep.
Just do that 8 times.
Yeah, and then that's it. We'll be able to put the rails back on, and then same for it's literally slide it into the intake, using a little bit of moving around a little bit where everything goes in nice and flat.
We'll put a little Vaseline on that end too, just to keep everything slicked up.
Yeah, it's a E85 is probably one of the most common questions I have on tuning, like how it works with tuning or how much power we get. We get a lot of people want to do 85 because after you do the cam and the popular bolt-ons,
You get all the big hits, right?
yep, and then you got to start getting all the small stuff to get the last few horsepower out of it.
Got all 8 injectors in, locked down. Got a little Vaseline on the O-rings. Make sure you don't get any wires in your way. Kind of halfway line them up. Get them started in the hole. And then just want to
Yep. It's always a good sound.
so they're flush. And you
Yep.
go back in with all 4 bolts. And then that part's done. Then it's just the sensor and running that sensor wire into the PCM. We'll get there shortly. So we're going to take the E85 signal wire and put some of this nylon loom on it with a piece of double wall adhesive lined heat shrink for the end of it. Get it started in there, and we just work it all the way down to the end of the harness. That'll just clean it up some, make it look a little better. It'll be super tight, and it protects the wire from any chafes. And at the end, we'll put the heat shrink on to hold it in place. It'll look nice and be functional. When we get to the end with the loom, you take this double wall adhesive lined heat shrink, run it up to the top. As it shrinks, it'll also melt the glue, and the glue will hold the nylon conduit in place.
It holds it in place and it looks so much better and finished. I mean, it looks like a finished product there. This car has long tube headers on it, but you can see way down here is the, yeah, I think it's seeing it right there. The oxygen sensor that you're going to unplug and put the G8 only E85 sensor plug in between.
So like we were saying before with the G8 only kit, all the wiring stays back behind the head. So you unplug that plug that you saw earlier for the oxygen sensor. Just plug this in between, and that's going to power your sensor. We'll ground this to there's a free 10mm bolt right here on the firewall. See if I can light it up. Right there.
Yep.
And that'll ground it. I'm going to put the ground wire onto our firewall.
Yeah, it's pretty tight back here. Hopefully you have little small hands.
Hey,
No.
you know what they say about small hands?
You can get small gloves?
Yep.
Usually we have April do these kind of jobs, but she's kind of lounging today. Just because it's her car, she thinks she can take the time off, but
She's letting us do the light work.
yeah, that looks good. Snug her on down.
So we'll take a little WD-40 or some kind of light oil on the threads, and this quick disconnect tool will go over the factory line with this retainer behind that raised flange, and that's what will mechanically hold this in place. So this will go on like so
Oh, that fits on nice.
until it stops, and then you'll put the retainer on the back side and get it started.
And then it threads in.
And it threads in up against that raised flange, and that's what locks it in.
Right there. Yep.
As you can see,
Yep, and then just tighten that
to it, and then we'll snug it just a little bit.
The front is what keeps the fuel from flowing.
Right.
Okay.
This is what holds it in place on the
Makes
fuel
sense.
line. Let's get where we can get on it. Not a ton of extra room back here to work. There we go. Good and snug. And you can clock this however you need it. We like
Somewhere
to
in
keep it
that
flat.
usually seems about where we're at. Yep.
That way you see all black. I don't know, it just cleans it up. And then here's our plug right there, ready to snap in. And then we'll route the signal wire to our ECM some way that looks nice. Okay. So here's your fuel line to the engine from the sensor. Same deal, we'll put some light oil on the threads. And as you can see, it'll go from here, it's a -6, it'll go from here into your fuel rails. So we'll go ahead and put the rail fitting. This is a better view of what we were just doing in the back anyway.
Yep.
Put the retaining nut on the back side. Get it started.
Yeah, and like he was saying, this is the exact same thing that was going on in the back. Just a little bit harder to see back there, so now you can see exactly how it goes on, and
3/4 inch wrench.
the wrench holds it, tightens in there.
Don't want to mar it up. And we've got the nice LSX only logo on our fittings. And we'll take our -6 here. And thread it in. And then there should be a -6 AN wrench that I just had. I wonder if it's in my pocket.
Pocket be a decent place to have it.
It is not. Here it is. Take our -6 wrench, hold this with a 3/4. Again, not a ton of room back here.
Oh, it's pretty tight, but it's
But
good. Good to see what's going on. And a lot of people may not have AN wrenches, but if you don't, you can put a little tape on there. Just be careful because the fittings will mar easily if you don't have a nice wrench. See, everything wipes off since we use it with a AN wrench made for that.
it looks really nice there.
Yep. That way the fuel side is actually done now. The new injectors are in, the 85 sensor is plumbed in, the new fuel line's on. Now it's just wiring it in.
So this is the part that's a little intimidating to people, understandably, but it's really not that bad. This top connector on the PCM is your X1 connector, and it has the empty pin where you wire in the E85 wire to pin 40. Well, how do you find pin 40 and how do you get the wire in? It's not that bad, and we'll show you. So there's a locking tab on this connector, this red tab. You want to pop it up and out of the way, push a button right down behind it, and this lever comes up, and it's really not a lot of clearance between the fuse box and this lever, but it will go by enough to let you get the plug out, just barely. So you'll have to kind of get it all the way back and then rock the connector back and forth until it comes out. Sometimes it's easier said than done. Some of them that have never been out or rarely been out have some dirt or something in there. You get it up here where you can
Now you can see how the connector actually
work
works.
on it. So the lever's typically down. You'll unlock this tab, you'll push this button, and that'll let the lever come up. Yep. You'll notice there's a lot of pins here, and it's quite a few. The first thing you want to do is take a screwdriver, come in here, and pop this retainer off like this, a little bit on both sides. And that'll expose all the pins in there.
Oh.
So now we're down to one of the more intimidating parts. It can be more intimidating to some people, and this is finding pin 40 and inserting the pin into pin 40. So the way you identify that is this is 53 at the top left corner, that's 1 at the bottom. That means it goes like this, like a typewriter.
Yep.
So 53 is here, 52 would be the first one on the right side. So let's take this off. And we know that this is 53.
Mm-hmm.
So that means it went all the way up and then went 53 on to 72 or whatever it is. So 53, 52, 51, 50, 49, 48, 47, 46, 45, 44, 43, 42, 41, 40. So it's right beside, right just down from these two pins.
Okay.
So we want to identify that on the back. So we turn this over. And try to spread it open a little bit. And again, 52 is right here, so that's the second row. 53, 52, 51, 50, 49, 48, 47, 46, 45, 44, 43, 42, 41, 40. So it's this first blank right here, which we can get some needle nose.
Gotcha.
And I'll pull that out for you. So one right beside these two is pin 40, and you just grab that,
That's coming real
pull
clear
it
too.
out like that.
Nice.
So now that we've found the pin, pull the plug out, we want to make sure that this pin that we're putting back in is oriented the same. So you see the tongue of the connector. I don't know really what you want to call it, but it looks like a tongue. Zoom.
Yeah,
It's facing the bottom.
Yep.
On this row.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure ours is facing the bottom, and that's the side where the wire is, will be the bottom. So we'll turn it back over, find our pin, which is beside these two pins, and keeping it oriented, we'll insert it in there. Sometimes you gotta get some pliers on it and give it a little extra show. And you can see it start to come up here.
Yep.
It's not all the way up yet,
Pretty close.
but we'll give it a little shove here at the bottom. And then it's all the way up at the top. It's oriented the same as the other ones, and the locking tab down here can go flat, so you know it's maxed out at that point. You can go ahead and put your top plate back on, which locks all the connectors in and positions them appropriately, and you're done there. So now we'll take all the wires plus the new one we have. We'll put a wire tie back like the factory had around the base as a strain relief on the connector. It fits over the plastic right there. There's a little slot even for the wire tie to go down in there.
Like a glove.
Like a glove. Trim that and put the back piece on. Put the front end first, make sure it's seated, and push down the back to your two locking tabs. Now you're ready to plug it back in and plug it into your E85 sensor. And this wire, Joe sends like a solder, heat shrink solder connector. But what we like to do is put a male and female spade terminal on here and there, so that should we have to pull the motor, drop the engine out, we can unplug it and keep this harness with the engine like we do the ECM harness, and it's just something we don't have to cut and resplice later.
Every time.
And it'll just stay on the car. You just unplug the E85 sensor and we'll lift
Yep.
the car up out off the motor. So just planning in advance. So all we have to do now is route this wire over to here, connect it up, hook it back up to the PCM, and then it's tune time.
Oof.
When you put the connector back on, you want to make sure that it's started good and square first. You don't want to bend any pins, as April said.
It's got little, you can tell when it's right because it has a little
There you go.
studs that goes on.
So it'll fall down on there, and then once it's on there, it'll allow you to throw the lever, which again is up against the fuse box. So not 100% the easiest thing to do, but you don't want to force it because you can break that connector. Slide the lock tab back, and that's good to go.
Just getting the other end here. Like heat shrink on the end of it. Same thing, keep everything in place and it looks a lot better. Looks finished and complete. cleanup work. I like to always try to make everything disappear into the engine compartment, so we hid it underneath the factory coil and fuel injector wires.
And we'll put a spade connector, male and female, between here and here, down low, underneath, where you can't really see it. That way when we have to pull the engine or whatever, we just unplug it.
Don't say that.
You never know.
See, now we do this, and then we never have to pull the motor. Let's
You have 150,000 miles on this girl. What?
Let's more power, baby.
All right, so I have the HP tuners open now, and actually have the everything ready here, and I've already changed the things in the computer from no E85 to E85, but I didn't want to bore everything with that, but I wanted to give a general idea of what you have to do. It's several things in here you have to do. First, of course, you have to put your injector data in. It's going to be specific to the injectors you use. These are CTSV injectors that flow around 55 to 56 pounds at 400 kPa, which is no boost, no vacuum. What these are, 58 PSI. And then you have to enable the flex sensor, which is easy as enabling and saying sensor. Set up some defaults in here, percentages, and how much E85 it has to see before it will actually start reading off the E85 tables. Some threshold changes and things that I won't get into too much. Also, one of the advantages of doing flex fuel is the fact that you can add a little more timing. Time is already relatively aggressive in this car. I think we're at about 27 degrees at wide open throttle. And so what we're doing is, I know you can add, there's the factory E85 cars have a lot of things up here in flex fuel spark that will change based off of how much E85's in the tank, but this car is mostly, you know, a weekend car. You don't have to be that specific, and I may do that later, but the main gains you're going to see down here is adding fuel timing down here at wide open throttle. As you can see, I'm adding anywhere between 1 and 3 degrees of timing, depending on the RPM that it's turning. That should give us a pretty good start to make more power. And of course, with the extra cooling factor of the E85, we should be good. So now I'm just going to go ahead and upload this into the car, and we will open up the scanner again next, and that will allow us to check to make sure the sensor and all is working as well. With something like this, you do not need to write the calibration on the computer. This is your engine. This is your computer. You do not need to write the calibration for the transmission unless you are doing changes in that realm. And just to give you an idea of like how fast it goes, usually this works pretty well and pretty quick. It actually erases everything from your computer, or not everything when you're doing just a right calibration, but erases the main parameters and then adds them back in. Looks like we have about 40 seconds and we'll be on to the scanner. So we're just gonna turn the key on here and start scanning, and you can see, hopefully, looks like the ethanol content is 9%. That's about average for pump gas 93. And that shows everything is working and we are good to go. So now we're gonna crank it, see how our base tune is doing in regards to air fuel and tuning for the injectors. So that's the main thing. Whenever you change injectors, you have to change the whole injector data and the mass airflow frequency to match sometimes. But if you get the injector data close, you shouldn't have many problems getting everything else to match up as well. All right, doing a little test drive in here. I know it's like a driving at night video, which makes it even worse. But as you can see, the fuel trims are dialed in pretty dang close. Right now at idle, we're actually taking out, and then adding, then taking out. So It's very close. I don't think I'm going to mess with it at all. That keeps all her fuel trims for wide open throttle and all close to the same. And driving looks to be about the same. If floor a little bitting and get on it. Yeah, so see. Everything looks good. Go all the way to the floor. There we go. You're good. You're good. Air fuel looked actually good. Let's see here. And it's hard to tell the exactly where we're at, because I know she went from full throttle to not to full throttle, but the O2s are in the low 900s. Actually right there you can see it's about 905, 900 at this spot, and from what we've seen in this car, that's going to be about where we want to be at a wide open throttle. May get her to do one a little more, and then we're going to go and drain the gas from the tank and put some more in. All right, we just did one little test hit just to see. We had to get to Mexico, and as you can see, we had great acceleration. 6,500 we pulled it to. O2 stayed in the low 900s almost the entire pull. No spark knock at all, and that was at almost 27 degrees of timing. So we're gonna go back now and like I was saying earlier, drain the 93 out, put some E85 in.
All right, same old story. Bleed the pressure down, that way we can dump the tank and put E85 in there.
Ended up running out of time last night. Was tuning another couple vehicles for people, and went right back to the shop. Dusty, April Mark got the rest of the 93 out and put in the E85. She just drove it home as such. As we checked, the idle was close, so we should be good for some E85 wide open throttle tuning today and making sure everything stays in spec. Good so far. Yeah, that sounds good. I think we're going to be pretty close with that.
Just gotta keep my phone.
Still out it up about 1,000 or so. Yeah, that sounds really good. We'll get everything hooked up and see. Check it out. All right, on our default settings here, like I said, sorry the sun's in our eyes. Oh, there you go. We're at about 70% ethanol, or 65.9 here. First hit, got up to about 60 or so, but went a little lean, but no spark knock or anything, and everything is looking pretty good. So now I'm just going to go in, since the cruising is good, meaning all the air fuel's matching up there. We are just going to go into HP tuners and go on the fuel and the power enrichment and change the EQ ratio for your E85, which is your alcohol. And as you can tell, it's never been messed with, so we'll be able to increase this, get the fuel we need, and should be good. We're back soon. All right, we added some fuel. We're got the O2s about where I want them to be at wide open throttle, almost at 7,000 RPM, and we are using about 90% of these injectors. So we still got a little headroom, but yeah, with a stock injector, you would never be able to use the 85 unless you have a bone stock car, because you're just not going to have enough injector to do so. Now we're at about steady out at about 65% ethanol and 90% duty cycle on the injector. So they've got a little headroom, but not a ton. And we've got the timing up to 29. and probably put one more degree in it and call it a day, as we have no spark knock or anything noticeable to do. One thing that April was saying was neat was to show the fuel consumption difference on E85 and pump gas. This is the exact same tune, the exact same injectors, everything, just running E85 used about 90% of the injectors, whereas I'm going to pull up the log from last night. Let's see here. As a comparison, you can see similar O2 readings, not quite the RPM, it was about 6,500, but we were only at 63 duty cycle on the injector, so a lot of room to grow. I did have one other one where we turned 7,000, but I think I forgot to save it, and it was about 70%. So as you can tell, the injectors go from 70% duty cycle all the way up to 90, so it uses about 20% more duty cycle on E85. So pretty much wrapped up with that on the tuning side, and hope you guys actually learned some things here about the E85, how it is to install, what it takes to do, the electrical side, the mechanical side, and then the tune side. So if you guys need anything like that, we also do this kind of work, and I do tuning as well, of course. Just send us a message. We'll be happy to help however we can.